Hello, I'm Stalnaker with Hub Culture, and we're at the World Climate Summit in Durban, South Africa. Joining me right now is Nicolette from IS Partners and Seriti, and Epiphanea Maunzagona, also from Seriti. This organization is doing some interesting work here in Southern Africa, and we'd really like to hear about what your message is, and especially in the context of COP.
Okay. The interesting thing is that Seriti was really just a small project in the beginning. It was part of my MBA project where I really tried to integrate people from being homeless to all the way up into the economy where they can actively engage in jobs and in sensible activities in terms of wealth creation and empowerment. I've done a lot of consulting work for our Department of Trade and Industry in terms of job creation and sustainable development initiatives across Africa. And it became clear that the thing that's always missing is dignity. Because if someone has a decent job, they actually can restore dignity because they feel they've got the right to engage back with society. And that's really how Seriti, or the name Seriti, came about. It is harder than what I thought and assumed. I think our biggest challenge has been up to now is that the organization essentially has been going for the last 5 years. But it's very difficult to get your first real funding in because everyone wants to see that you have, that you're serious about it, so they want to see that you have gone through pain for it, that you really believe it, that you're passionate about it. And certainly the last 5 years has been very tough in terms of trying to give up a corporate career that pays well and work in a community-based type of organization where people all of a sudden assume that you don't have bills to pay and you can run around and create jobs for free because they want to see that your heart is in it.
Well, the problem is that the economic structure isn't geared towards funding these sorts of things because there's no direct beneficiary other than the person getting the job, right? So it's probably difficult to find funding from outside sources because the outside sources fund things that benefit themselves, right? So, if you're working for a company, you're benefiting the company, but if you're working for a community organization, it's just harder. So what are you guys doing to get around that? How are you guys adapting to that?
Well, basically, as the founder, the better part of the 5 years, we're coming from her pocket, thanks to her, but we have been working towards now trying to find projects that are feasible in their own manner, that can actually become lucrative. But we have a hotel project that is coming up. We have crafts work, like workshops, training for women.
So this is giving people a hand up to basically start making economic returns on themselves. So you're getting them off the bottom of the...
Exactly.
And onto the ladder.
Exactly. Yeah. The idea is to just look at the poor, not as a burden that we can always give handouts to, but as entrepreneurs that can actually work for themselves.
And that's really where Seriti comes in because it's about restoring dignity. You can only do that if you give people a sensible way to re-engage into society because without that, there's hopelessness and people don't feel that they've got the right to engage.
So in South Africa alone, there are 2.5 million people a year streaming into the country. And the government has recently announced that over the next I believe between now and 2020, so over the next 8 years, they intend or hope to create 5 million jobs. So in 8 years, they hope to make 5 million jobs, but there are 2.5 million people arriving every year. So it doesn't seem very likely that the situation for job creation in South Africa, or really anywhere else in the world, is going to get better relative to the number of people who need jobs. How can something like this help solve that problem? Because that's a very large problem, right?
It's a long discussion, but to keep it very short, is basically Seriti is all about creating markets as well, because there's no use that you engage people, for example, in creative projects and you teach them skills to make beautiful pottery if there's not a market for that. So Seriti is all about creating the markets as well and making sure that we provide quality products that people want to buy and to really make it aspirational as well. I think there's a lot of examples like that, like Tom's Shoes and just the social entrepreneurial type of examples like that, where it's not about handouts, but it really is about developing business models that's sustainable in their own right. Yeah.
And how are your projects sustainable?
And the other thing that is actually unique about Seriti is that we're not focusing on people that are already working. We're focusing on the already unemployed, the homeless, the hopeless. You see, so when we take these off the streets, right, we take in slum buildings and make them homes for them. Not instead of just having infrastructure that's already there that is being underutilized for other reasons, starting from drugs, prostitution, and right, we get those buildings, we renovate them, we refurbish them, and we create centers there.
So how are you guys funding this, and how do others get involved with doing this? Like how do you pick your projects, and how can others help support those projects?
I think the biggest thing for us is just to make sure that the organisation is sustainable from the admin cost side. People often underestimate just how much it costs in terms of running around, fuel, cell phones, all the basics, the auditors that has to be paid, the company finances that has to be paid. So I think for us, something that's very critical is to make sure that those base costs are covered, to make sure that the project management is sustainable going forward, because someone has to absorb that cost.
So how do you plan to find that?
We've met a lot of people during this conference, and I really do hope that we'll be able to actually connect the funders and the investors to these projects and make sure that it works for everyone. So
that's the whole idea of COP after all. Because I think for us the big
The whole
thing...
idea of COP is finding a global price on carbon, but in lieu of that, maybe we can...
Well, we can make it one of the principles. The idea for me, that is COP17, is to actually get people to realize that the solutions are there. It's not totally hopeless. The world is very sufficient and efficient in its own way. The idea now is to just bring the solutions to those that can actually find the solutions and hopefully implement them. Because year after year, people meet, people discuss, good discussions. We have social media, we have a good talk, and after that, we forget about the minutes, which we would take again for the next following year and whatever. But now we are hoping that since we already have projects that are in place, solutions that are feasible, sustainable, and obviously green, then if we meet with the funders and they do that, then all of us playing our part really, this will not altogether be a waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Seriti, and really taking homeless, unemployed, and disadvantaged communities here in South Africa and across Southern Africa, and looking to help get them a leg up. So, is there a website?
At the moment, it's dormant. We lack funding. My bond is depleted. But no, sure, it will be up again soon.
Okay, well, certainly from Hub Culture, we can certainly help you guys open a group and maybe have some activity where you can start to collect people who can potentially help you. So that'll be our commitment to try and help you guys out.
Thank you very much, Stan. I'll hold you to that.
Okay. Deal. Okay, so Stan Stalnaker from Hub Culture in South Africa.